Good afternoon everyone and welcome to this meeting of the Local Review Body of the 11th of March 2025. I can confirm that the meeting has been properly called and is quorate. Can I first ask members to appoint a chair for this meeting, please? Councillor Breretti.
Strange coincidence. I'll ask for Councillor Carruthers to chair.
Seconded by Councillor Johnston. Members, just give us a minute for Councillor Carruthers to take the seat up at the top. Thanks.
Thanks very much for your nomination, Councillor Breretti, and Councillor Johnson for seconding. So, good afternoon, members. A very warm welcome to this meeting, the Local Review Body. The meeting is being live streamed and recorded, and the recording will be made available on the Council's website for public viewing and listening. Remote participants, please follow the good practice guidance, which includes muting your microphones and switching off your video when you're not addressing the meeting. And speak in the Teams chat function. When you want to contribute, no material should be posted in the chat function if it's intended as part of the discussion. Our standing orders apply, including that any votes will be undertaken by a roll call. All members should speak as clear as they can into the microphone when making contributions, and when referring to reports, please provide references to the relevant page and paragraphs if that is possible. Members' remote participation, that's confirmed by myself. I think that's the next stage. And Tracy, it's over to you for setting apologies. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. We've got 7 members present, 3 members present here in Council Chambers, being the Chair, Councillor Breretti and Councillor Maureen Johnston, and 4 members present on Teams, being Councillor Dryborough, Councillor Howie, Councillor Lowe and Councillor McFarlane. Thanks, Chair.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Full house. So, any declarations of interest or statements of connection even, for that matter, I think? Just checking online, nobody in the room giving us any indication that that would be the case. So I'll assume nobody online either, so we'll take it as item 2 covered. Item number 3, item number 4 is over to yourself, I think, again, Tracy. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. So we have one notice of review for consideration at this meeting today, which is item 4, Rosebank Cottage, Cairnryan, Stranraer. Refusal of planning permission for change of use of land to form haulage yard, formation of hard standing, erection of 1.8 metre high boundary fence and 2.2 metre high security gates and associated works, retrospective reference 23/2206/FUL. So within your papers, members, you've got the notice of review dated the 6th of January 2025, submitted by SG Plans, the applicant's agent, on behalf of Mr A. Clucky, the applicant, and this was received on the same day and can be found on pages 17 to 33. You've got your report on handling, determined under delegated powers, pages 37 to 65. Observations of the appointed officer and the applicant's agent's notice of review are on pages 69 to 71. Comments of the applicant's agent on observations of the appointed officer can be found on pages 75 to 82. The planning application form, which was submitted on the 13th of October 2023, associated plans and support information, is on pages 85 to 101. The decision letter from Dumfries and Galloway Council, which is dated the 22nd of October 2024, is pages 105 to 109. The relevant extracts from the Dumfries and Galloway Local Development Plan 2 and National Planning Framework 4 can be found pages 113 to 141, and the photos of the application site and locality are on pages 145 to 149. So the grounds of refusal on page 107 are 1. The proposed development is contrary to Dumfries and Galloway Council Local Development Plan 2, policies ED2 and ED1B, and National Planning Framework 4, policy 26, and that site for the proposed haulage yard is located in the countryside and is neither within nor adjacent to an existing settlement, and no overriding and compelling site-specific need for a rural location, or for this site in particular, for this proposed business use has been provided. As such, the proposal would represent sporadic business industrial development in a rural area. 2. The proposed development is contrary to Dumfries and Galloway Council Local Development Plan 2, Policy OP2 and the related supplementary guidance, and National Planning Framework 4, Policy 29, and that the use of the land as a haulage yard would be visually incompatible with its rural locality. So the requested method of determination can be found on page 20, and that is that the notice of review, the applicant has asked that the review be dealt with by means of a review of the relevant information that has been provided without any further procedures. However, in the comments of the applicant's agent on observations of the appointed officer on page 81, the applicant's agent has invited members of the local review body to visit the application site to see the operation, its location in relation to the ferry ports at Cairnryan, and why it makes logistical sense to be in close proximity to P&O and Stena Line ports. So the grounds that are stated within the notice of review in pages 17 to 33 and in the comments of the applicant's agent on observations of the appointed officer are on page 75 to 82. And in summary, those are: 1. The proposed business use is in keeping with the primary business function of the area, for example, transport, storage and distribution. And owing to the government's aspirations for this area, there will be an increasing need for this type of haulage business, which in turn would help to reinforce and support transport links and realise the vision for the area. The development therefore not only accords with MPF 4, Policy 16, Part C, but also facilitates the realisation of the Stranraer Gateway project. Note that it is believed that this is meant to reference to Policy 26C. MPF 4 Policy 26C supports development proposals for business and industry where they are compatible with the primary business function of the area. The proposed development is in close proximity to the proposed Stranraer Gateway, one of 18 developments of national importance set out in MPF 4, and which is designed to bring new impetus to regenerate the strategically located settlement of Stranraer. According to the indicative regional spatial strategy for the south of Scotland, it's aimed to create a Stranraer Gateway based on the Stranraer Waterfront project, improve transport infrastructure to and from Stranraer, the creation of a green port at Stranraer, Cairnryan, and a series of business and industrial land, low carbon heating and built environment projects. At the heart of this proposal is improving the road infrastructure for access to Stranraer and/or Cairnryan. MPF 4 Policy 26D is not triggered as the proposed development is clearly within an area identified for business, general industrial and storage and distribution use. Identified for those uses. It is not equivalent to associated for those uses in Policy 26A. There is therefore no need for the applicant to demonstrate that they have considered suitable alternative sites. In that context, the strategic and significant location of the proposed development, which is situated between Stranraer and the Port of Cairnryan, is a material consideration in the determination of this application. Local development plans should take forward proposals for national developments where relevant and facilitate their delivery. MPF 4, page 97. The Council must consider this when determining the application against the policies in the LDP. With that in mind, Policy ED1 requires that, where a proposal is not located on an allocated or established business and industry site, the developer will be required to demonstrate the need for the proposal at that location. Page 26. The proposal for the Stranraer Gateway clearly shows that there is and will continue to be a need for this type of business in the area. Policy ED2 states, Proposals which expand existing businesses or create new ones in the rural area will be considered favourably, subject to other policies in the plan. There is a preference that this will generally be within or adjacent to existing settlements. Sites out with settlements may be acceptable where they offer opportunity to diversify an existing business or are related to a site-specific resource or opportunity. Page 27. The proposed development represents a site-specific opportunity given its proximity to Cairnryan Port and the Stranraer Gateway project. The refusal of the planning permission effectively means that 18 people currently employed as a result of the strategically located commercial yard will lose their jobs. The proposals are a clear example of a business that directly supports the nearby and much larger commercial operations of P&O Ferries and Stena Line. It should be noted at this point that the commercial yard referred to in this application is located nearer to the village of Cairnryan than the relatively new Stena Line port when it was given consent. MPF 4 Policy 26 Part C supports development proposals for business and industry where they are compatible with the primary business function of the area. These proposals are not only compatible with the two nearby primary businesses, they are small but integral part of helping to make the North Corridor a viable option for freight and ferry firms alike. Should this become standard practice from Dumfries and Galloway planning, it will just be a matter of time before other freight firms are discouraged from investing within our area. With projects such as this being discouraged, expect that freight firms will soon be looking to invest in transport yards adjacent to ports like Holyhead in Wales, where local planning seems to be more receptive to commercial investors. The far-reaching and combined consequences of the President this decision will set and the comparatively poor investment in the A75 compared to the North Wales Expressway A55 to Holyhead could ultimately contribute to bringing into question the already tenuous viability of the two ferry ports themselves. This application in terms of development is in the countryside and much like the new Stena Line ferry port does represent an exceptional circumstance. Given the state of our local economy, we should be actively encouraging more freight firms to submit similar infrastructural applications. Investment in jobs and support infrastructure such as this should be encouraged and a precedent set which will in turn help to attract much needed and like-minded investors in our area. Given the existing and foreseeable relatively poor road links to our ports from the M6, we need to encourage the introduction of alternative ideas and investment that will help to secure the viability of two of Scotland's main operational ports. The appointed officer's comments have failed to provide a logistical and an economically viable report to support a claim that relocating to Black Park's industrial estate would be a viable option for this business to operate from. The cost involved in purchasing or leasing these, in many cases, much more expensive alternative sites, along with rising fuel prices and administration costs since Brexit, would make my client's business much more economically vulnerable. Dumfries and Galloway Planning did not, at any point during the application process, request any information on alternative and previously considered sites from my client's business. My client would have happily submitted viability reports on any previously considered sites on request. If this point was such an instrumental part in refusing this application, why was this information not requested by Dumfries and Galloway Planning during the application process? They requested other information which was forwarded to them, so why not this? You then have a list of your development plan policies, which can be found on pages 113 to 141. So the main issues for the local review body to consider is the applicant's agent has submitted late information which was not in front of the appointed officer when the decision was taken on the 22nd of October 2024. This information comprising a written representation from Councillor Willie Scobie in support of the application was received on the 6th of January 2025 and a supporting statement from the applicant also received on the 6th of January 2025. These appear on pages 31 and 33 of the papers respectively. Section 43 of the Town and Country Planning Scotland Act 1997 as amended provides that in a review under section 43A8, a party to the proceedings is not to raise any matters which was not before the appointed officer at the time of determination reviewed was made unless that party can demonstrate A, that the matter could not have been previously raised before that time, or B, that it has not been raised before the time was a consequence of exceptional circumstance. On that basis, are members satisfied that this late information should not be taken into account? The applicant's agent has stated that the applicant would happily provide a viability report on alternative and previously considered sites. Do the local review body wish to request this or any other written information? Would the proposal comply with the terms of the development plan? In particular, does the proposal meet the terms of LDP2, policies ED2, AD1, Part B, OP2 and the guidance set out in the relevant adopted LDP2 supplementary guidance? Would the proposal fail to comply with MPF4 policies 26 and 29? In particular, noting that the site is located in the countryside area and is not within or adjacent to an existing settlement, has an overriding and compelling site-specific need been made for this rural location? Does the proposal represent sporadic business industrial development in a rural area? Is the use of the site as a haulage yard visually incompatible with the rural locality? If it is considered that the proposal does not accord with the terms of the development plan, are there a set of material considerations of sufficient weight to justify a departure from the terms of the development plan? If so, on what grounds would such a decision be made, and what reasons would members give for such a decision if it was considered that the proposal departs from the terms of the development plan? If members are minded to reverse the appointed officer's decision and instead grant planning permission for this proposal, what set of conditions and reasons would members wish to see attached, if any? If members are instead minded to vary the terms of the appointed officer's decision, what changes to the specific reasoning for the decision would be required, and what additional policies, if any, would be referenced? So, having outlined the documents within members' papers, it now falls to the local review body to determine whether it has sufficient information to consider the review. It is confirmed that no representations from any party will be heard today. The options available to the local review body today are: it can decide it has sufficient information before it to enable it to determine the review today, request further information in the form of written representations, and the local review body will be required to state precisely the information it is seeking and who must provide it, resolve to hold a hearing, again specifying who will be invited to speak and on what matters, resolve to hold a site visit, accompanied or unaccompanied, and this could be done in conjunction with any of the other options outlined already, but would obviously not allow a decision to be made today. If the local review body resolves that it has sufficient information and that no further procedure is required, then the local review body has the full powers to uphold, reverse or vary a determination. The decision notice will include a statement of the terms in which the planning authority has decided the case reviewed. A planning advisor is present at your meeting today in relation to this case. It's confirmed that he has not had any involvement in this case prior to the submission of the notice of review. He was not the case officer or the appointed officer for this application. He is purely here to provide independent advice as needed on matters of planning policy, law or process to the local review body. A solicitor is also present here today, and she will act independently if the local review body require any specific advice on the matters of law. So if members are clear and no further clarification is required, I will ask the Chair to lead the debate and in the first instance to ask the review body if it has sufficient information before it to make a determination today. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thanks very much for that, Tracy. That was quite thorough and comprehensive, to say the least. So the first question, as Tracy's already outlined, have we got enough information to make a determination today? I think before we get to that stage, I'll refer back to the index of contents as was outlined earlier. We'll go through and give members a chance to reflect any particular questions. So I'll go through them each section, to which there's 9, I think. There is 9, yep. And we'll get to point 8, which is the photographs. We'll then ask Robert to show us the photographs on the screen, so members both within the room and who are online can see that too. So members, I'm looking at a notice of review, dated the 6th of January 2025. It's submitted by SG Plans, applicant's agent on behalf of Mr A. Clicky, the applicant, and received on the same day, pages 17 to 33. So members, what I'll say is if we've got any questions in particular in regards to that, because ultimately what we're trying to do, because I'm getting a look by some members within the room who are, I think it's probably one of the first ones, but we're trying to understand, have we got enough information? So on that particular point, so Councillor Bright is wanting in first. Tony?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. In reference to those pages, and I noticed on page 31, which is the support from Councillor Willie Scobie, it says 20 drivers, 18 of which are full-time, and then on page 33 it refers for Mr Clucky 15 full-time and 3 part-time. So there's a bit of confusion as to actually how many people are working there.
Yep. Robert?
Thanks, Chair. But before I answer that question, I would be inclined to take the comments of the applicant. Those two documents, the document from Councillor Willie Scobie on page 31 and the supporting statement from the applicant on page 33, that is new information relative to this case. So before you consider it, you have to consider whether or not you want to consider that as part of your assessment of the application today, because they weren't in front of the appointed officer when the decision was taken.
Yep. Thanks, Robert. Tony?
There's quite throughout this documentation reference to job employment from the area and potentially moving away. So to me it is relevant, because if you move 15 and possibly 3 away, these individuals may or may not live within the vicinity of Cairnryan or Stranraer, or may have to travel. So if that business or whatever is moved away, what happens to these who are employed?
So we'll definitely come back to that point, but as it stands, you're suggesting that we should take that into consideration as we go forward. Yep. Councillor McFarlane, Andy?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Slightly relevant. I've trawled through the papers, but I can't see. I understand that the application was partially retrospective, or at least partially retrospective. Do we know how long it's been in place? Because if we're talking about people in employment, have they just been employed? Have been employed there for years? You know, and why is it? Why do we find ourselves in this situation? Thanks.
I suppose what we're trying to determine today, looking at the pages 17 to, I think it was 17 to 33, any particular points contained within there, Andy, if you could refer to that, and then we'll come back. I think that's these points in particular will be fundamental to the part of the discussion that we have.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. It is relevant. What I was asking, in effect, is because it's retrospective, if these people have, you know, how stable is the employment? You know, if Councillor Peretti thinks that this is a relevant point, then we're going to take it into consideration when we're making a decision on it. We need to know, well, we need to get a feel, I think, for how long these people have been employed there and how long it's been run as a business at that location. That was my link to pages 17 to 33. Thanks.
So I don't know if Robert can answer that or not, but if not, we can. That's potentially a piece of information that you could ask for a further request if we don't have it in front of us. Robert?
Thanks, Chairman. My understanding is it's been a long time since I've been responsible for a planning and enforcement function, but my understanding is if an outcome here meant that you were minded, or rather the council were minded to take enforcement action, that would be a discretionary power, and there could be a period of time allowed, if you like, for the business to find an alternative location before an enforcement notice took effect, for example, in that scenario, recognising that this is a retrospective application, so there is a degree of flexibility there, just depending on what the outcome would be if the council took enforcement action in the wake of the LRB decision.
Thanks, Robert. Just before I bring you in, Councillor Dryburgh, Andy, does that answer your question or not?
No, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, we can come back to that particular point. And I'll raise a point in regards to the enforcement action, the length of time of the business, because I think Councillor Johnson mentioned something earlier, and I think it's in this part, but we'll come back to that. Councillor Dryburgh?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. And I think any information on this, which is a business that has been running for some time, albeit without planning permission or whatever, we need to understand the information. And I think Tracy said that information would need to be looked at by the planning officer. And if that is the case, then it might be an idea to adjourn the LRB until such time as we get that information at a later date. But that would be my understanding of it.
Yeah, no, it'd be mine too. So what I intend to do Councillor Driver, is to go through to section, I think it's 8A rather than 9. Once we've seen the photographs, give everybody a chance to make the comments, look for further info and ask for further information. If we feel at that point, okay, that could well be a site visit too, just depending on what members are feeling. So when we get to that point, we can make that decision then, if you're okay with that, Archie.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Thanks very much for your input. So, Councillor Johnson, you were making a point. So just before the meeting started, Councillor Johnson was making a point in regards to historical use, I think, and I think it's referred to in here. I'll let you talk to that then. I'll put my comments on it.
Yes, thank you, Chair. It was going to page 85.
Sorry, we'll pick up then. And sorry,
Yeah.
it might be next. Sorry, I thought it was in the first part.
Yeah,
Yep.
I'll pick up that in the next one.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you.
So, members, so what I'll do is then, if I've no other questions, particularly on pages 17 to 33, we'll move on to the next one, which is, so it's point 3, observations of the appointed officers, where you're talking about, I think, is it? Oh no, it's the comments of the applicant's agent, or even beyond that. Anyways, point 2 is report and handling determined under delegated powers and related correspondence, pages 37 to 65. If you've got any comments, questions in regards to that? Councillor Baretti.
Just a second, Chair, you're moving faster than I can actually move my fingers.
That's no problem. We'll just give you time.
On page 37, planning constraints affecting the site include air traffic consultation zone. I'm just wondering if, because it is so close to the ferry yard that is already there, how much of an impact might that actually be? And just as I'm sure that Robert will show us the pictures, but at this stage, it would be nice just to know what's the width of this actual stretch, if I can get the page, because I cannot see the figures of even page 63 is one of them, but what's the actual distance across that, just so that I understand now what we're dealing with.
Thank you, Councillor Brett. We'll give Robert a chance to pick up on that. Robert?
Thanks, Chair. In relation to the delegated report, page 37 mentions that this is an air traffic consultation zone. As far as I'm aware, there was a consultation zone there based on the presence of West Fruch runway. There may also be a consultation zone in relation to Prestwick Airport. I'm not sure, but that's covered in the delegated report. As far as was it page 63 you were asking about, or was it a different page in relation to the access?
I think it was 63. Yep.
Yeah, there's a couple of maps, and I know you'll probably bring pictures up, but at this stage, I'd just like to know where you've got page 63 and you've got the building at the bottom and the distance from the fence to the other side. How much is that? Because I simply can't read it on the map. It's too small.
So it's the distance from the building to the fence, is that correct?
No, from the fence to the other side. So the turning area, what would be the actual turning area?
Is that 7.7 metres? That's just a turning point. It's difficult actually to see exactly what you're talking about, because there's a building obviously further up where there's no dimensions mentioned.
Right.
But
So you reckon about 7.7. So we might see that in the pictures if they come up on screen.
Yes.
Okay, I'll wait until then, Chair.
Okay.
Chair, I think the reference to 7.7 metres on that plan is a spot height above ordnance datum. I think so, yeah. But the proposed site plan, like you've mentioned in page 63, does show the location of everything. The pictures will probably give a better indication of kind of sizes and distances on that once you see them relative to vehicles.
Yeah. There's no actual dimensions on that, is you right enough? It's topographical, isn't it? It is. I've just got to pick up on it. I think so. I think what Robert's saying as well on page 38, point 2, which is where it talks about consultations. I think you covered that though. And it talks about Ministry of Defence. Is that what you're talking about? So when he's talking about air traffic control?
That is correct, Chair. They've got no objection to the proposal.
Your first point was on the air traffic control zone, wasn't it? So I think that covers it. That's what Robert's saying there. at the second point on under the consultations. The Ministry of Defence have covered that by saying no objection. But members, I'll just see if there's anybody else, which I don't think there is. So part 3 is observation of the appointed officer on the applicant agent's notice of review. That's pages 69 to 71. Any members got any questions in regards to that? I would say no, but members, I'm always flexible to go back if I'm moving too fast, if I am moving too fast. So comments, so part 4 is comments of the applicant's agent and observations of the appointed officer. I've just done that. No, haven't I? Pages 75 to 82. That's enough. The point 5, I think this is this where you were wanting in, Maureen? Was it plan application form submitted on 13th October 2023, associated plans and support information, pages 85 to 101. Councillor Johnston, I think you were. Yep.
Thank you, Chair. It's on page 85. It's when the current owners purchased the land. This was actually at the time was being used as a commercial yard. And my question is, how long has this land been used for commercial purposes after the point of, before the point of sale to our applicant?
And as part of the discussion, and you spoke about our enforcement, I was speaking to Councillor Johnson briefly about the 10-year rule, whereby it may well be a breach.
Yes.
Maybe if you could explain that as well, Robert, please. It's an enforcement's a difficulty after that.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. The simple answer is I don't know the answer to that question. What I would rely upon in terms of planning history is what's in the delegated report. So if you look at page 38, paragraph 1.4 covers recent planning history. So it references a pre-application inquiry, and that says that was submitted in 2023. You can see here that officers responded in May 2023. So at that point in time, they were aware what the situation was as well. It does say the site has not benefited from any other planning permission in recent years as well. So at May 2023, certainly whoever made that inquiry was aware of what the situation was, and they'd been given an opinion on the merits of the case. But how long it had been a haulage yard, if you like, before this planning application came in, I simply don't know. Sorry, Chair.
No, so it's again, Councillor Johnston, I'll let you come back.
Yeah, I think it would be quite a good thing to find out how long it had been used as a whole, as a commercial business prior to this this applicant taking over the land. Yeah.
Okay, thanks very much for that. And I think the part of the conversation Councillor Johnson and I had was, my understanding is we might or might not get to the point, it might not be relevant, but in a period of 10 years, so when a business, a land use has been used, whether it's commercial, residential or otherwise, for 10 years or more, whereby it may well be in breach of planning policy, enforcement action is now impossible, I think. Robert, I just wonder if you can touch on that.
If they were able to demonstrate a continuous use of land for a period exceeding 10 years at a given location, then they could have grounds to apply for a certificate of lawfulness, but it would need to be, the onus of proof is on the applicant in that scenario.
And I think the reason we're discussing that was because the learning points that we pick up as members within this setting. So are you okay with that, Councillor Johnston?
No, I'm fine, thank you. That's fine, thank you.
It's just for people's knowledge more than anything. So, decision notice, a letter from the Dumfries and Galloway Council dated the 22nd of October 24, pages 105 to 109. It seems fairly straightforward, don't see anybody coming in. Part 7 is relevant extracts from the Dumfries and Galloway Council's Local Development Plan 2 and the National Plan and Framework 4, pages 113 to 141, I think that is. And if anybody's got any questions or points, like I say, we're very flexible in regards to having to come back. If I'm going too fast, we can easily come back to these points and they can be discussed in session or otherwise. Robert, I think it's over to you now in regards to the photographs. So the photographs, application site and locality. They're on page 145, 149, but Robert will run through these anyways. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Just to confirm, these photographs have been provided to me from the case officer, and they've also provided the captions. I haven't undertaken a site visit myself. So the first image, this is an aerial view with the application site outlined in red. So you can see the access point onto the A77 towards the bottom of that page, but the red line actually indicates the application site. So you can see Rosebank Cottage towards the top there and vehicle parking within the site as well. Second view is the A77 public road. It's looking north, so this is looking towards Cairnryan. You can see the application site, the fence and gates, and you can see a lorry unit there on the right-hand side, a cab unit. This is a view of the A77 public road. It's looking south at the vehicular access point, which you can see on the left-hand side with the bollard. And this is a view looking at the vehicular access point from the A77 public road with the council pool car to give a scale indication in terms of size. So I would imagine that piece of roadway there would be in the kind of region of about maybe 4 to 5 metres in width. But again, I haven't visited the site to measure it myself. This is a view of the site access. This is looking north, so this is into that car parking and vehicle parking area that you saw on your slide. It's looking towards the cottage as well, which you can see in the background there. This is a view from within the application site. It's looking north, so you can see the tractor units of the lorries sitting there on the left and Rosebank Cottage at the rear. And this is a view within the application site looking south, so that's in the opposite direction towards the access, and you can see the orange gates there, the fence is on the right hand side, and the A77 is beyond that. And the final picture I've got is a view of the new boundary fence that's been formed within the application site, and that's looking west, so that's looking towards the A77. Nope, got a ninth one actually. View from within the application site of associated development. And then there's another view within the application site of associated development as well. And that's it now. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Robert. Thanks so much for that. Councillor Barretti, I wonder if you've got any questions in regards to the relating to the photographs at all. Just what we saying earlier about the, I think it's about the geometries, turning points and stuff like that. If you have, I've certainly got one question, but I'll open up to members first. Councillor Barretti.
Yeah, photographs are interesting, but from what I can see, and maybe to help other members, when it says haulage yard, that doesn't look to me as if you can take a tractor and container into it and fill it up, because it is purely for tractor units so that they can sit there either waiting for a load to come into the port, or they'd be taking a load to the port. So we're looking at a site that is not specifically for full unit storage. Would that be your assessment, Robert?
Yes, that's the way I'm looking at it as well. I don't think it's physically possible to actually turn a full articulated lorry within that site. So you're right, I think it's just relating to the actual cab units.
I'll dispute that. I could turn one in there. But you would not be able to turn two at the same time, because you could get one from the dimensions, you can get one, but it depends where you put it. Another one would not be able to turn.
No, which is fair enough. I just thought it was relevant you pick that point up around about I take it was a turn and circle, be able to access in a forward direction. I think an exit in a forward direction from the site being safety. And my point was on, could we go back to the slide, Robert, please, on it shows the outline of the site, the red boundary, if that's possible. And as you're getting there, I'll just outline what my thoughts were. So my understanding, oh, there you go, right on it. The red boundary, the access road isn't contained within it. So Transport Scotland having the objectives subject to conditions, which is within the papers, being met, and that's really about visibility, so on and so forth. But you can see in looking along that, part of the visibility displays are contained within the application site, and some other, these have to be maintained, looking at the greenery there and such, again, to make sure they stay below the practice approximately a metre. Mark, I just wonder, is the access road and the appropriate parts of that visibility display that's been applied for, which has probably been considered by Transport Scotland, just when I've seen that before, have they got, has the applicant got control or ownership over it, is what I was thinking. Do we have that information? I'm just thinking about the maintenance of the visibility site, in particular heading towards Cairnryan, by the looks of it. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. I'm just looking at the plans that probably best show this, which are the location plan and the block plans, which you have in your papers. So that is at page 97. So on the left-hand side, you've got the location plan, and on the right-hand side, you have the block plan. You also have the red line indicated on that as well, and the red line indicates the application site boundary. You can see the access that has been formed there as well, but that is out with the red line of the application site. Now, the question is in relation to the Transport Scotland comments. So the most recent set of those are those of the 14th of June 2024, and they're on pages 57 to 58 of your papers. So I'm just going to navigate myself up to there and see what the recommended conditions say. Yeah, I mean, the condition that they wish to see imposed says all traffic associated with the development shall conform to the driver access / egress procedure as detailed on Asher Associates drawing title General Arrangement drawing number AA7951/ACC/01 dated the 2nd of June 2024. So they're basically looking for traffic to adhere to a particular procedure that's been set out. Now, whether or not that's a legitimate planning condition is a different kettle of fish altogether, but there's nothing actually physically required to be done at that junction to satisfy Transport Scotland apart from that. So I think that is actually something that they could comply with if that was imposed as a condition.
Well, thank you very much. So I would assume then, I could make an assumption, maybe come back to that, that I think it's forward in, forward out, so to speak. It's safe access, that particular condition. What they referred to, what Councillor Hurley coming in first, just before yourself, Councillor Bretty. But I think if it's, as long as it's been maintained and controlled, I think that was my point in particular. So I take it by the fact they haven't objected that that is sustainable. Councillor Hurley, then Bretty. Ian?
Thank you, Chair. It's just looking at photo 2 on page 145. It looks like these are step-down signals of 200 metres to a development. Just wondering where that sits in with the rurality of it. I think there was a suggestion that this was in a totally rural setting, but we appear to have a step-down speed limit within 200 metres of the site. Would I be correct in that, Robert?
Yeah, what you're looking at is, if you look at the second image on the presentation, that's looking to the north along the A77. So that is looking towards Cairnryan itself. And as you can see, you've got a chevron board there, 200 yards, I think it is, or 200 metres to the start of the 30 zone at Cairnryan. So yes, it's in the rural area. It's not within the settlement boundary, but you're talking about something that's in close proximity, just over 200 metres to the 30-mile-an-hour zone, which will be slightly different to obviously the planning boundary set out in LDP2. So it is in the rural area, but yes, it is close to a settlement.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bretty?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It's going back to the point that was raised about the vehicle access. So if you look at page 146 with the coloured section, and you see the Dumfries and Galloway small, I think it's a Kia, sitting at the road, bear in mind that the vehicles, if they were coming out, would be tractor units, so the driver would be sitting 7 foot above the road surface, and therefore their visibility would be unimpeded either way. So that's a point that should not be fooled by the car. It's not the car you're thinking of, it should be a tractor unit.
I think there's a specification that any in the visibility display for that, I think it's 4.5 metres back setback, looking across something like 140 metres long, and it's a metre high, I think. So whether it's a car or a large vehicle coming in or out, or even somebody on a motorbike, I think it's new about that. But I'm satisfied in regards to the fact that Transport Scotland haven't objected and they will have considered it. So, but I take on board exactly what you're saying. It's an elevated position. As you come in, you're up and above anyway. So you know, you've got good visibility because of those reasons, Tony. Thank you. So, members, the last bit beyond the photographs, if we haven't got any further questions in regards to the photographs themselves, the last point was the grounds of refusal, which is on page 107. Has any members got any questions in regards to that or not? Take that as a no. Or we'll have Councillor Driver. Archie?
Thanks, yeah. getting back to what I was saying before, obviously some members have got some questions here about the lack of advice from the planning officer, not a particular fault, but because it's not here, perhaps we would be able to have a far better understanding of what our outcome would be to this LRB review. So I'm suggesting that I'm not going to suggest a site visit, but I would like to get more information on Councillor Scobie's email and the applicant's request as well before we come to a decision on this.
Thanks so much, Councillor Driver, for that. So we'll keep going with that line of thought, and that's the exact direction I was heading in, Archie. So we're satisfied with the refusal, that we've not got any particular questions over that. So we're getting to the crux of whether we've got enough information to proceed today. Councillor Driver says he feels we haven't on two particular points. He hasn't mentioned a site visit, but I'll open up to all members in regards to particular points, queries they might have in regards to further information. So nobody in the room's coming in yet. So Councillor McFarlane, I know you made some comments at the beginning. I wonder if you want to come back in on those points now, just to be sure.
Yeah, thanks for that, Chair. I mean, I am interested to know how long this has been running, because I do think if it's been established, and I take into account your comments about 10 years and whatever, but I'm not, that's not the way I'm thinking. I'm just thinking that if it is an established business, we haven't clearly had complaints from local residents in relation to noise nuisance or the vehicular movements and such like. So I'm sympathetic to this, in particular in relation to the fact that it sounds like it might be an application, just the right application, but at the wrong time. Because if there was to be the development that we anticipate in relation to the Stranraer and the waterfront, etc., then it might be that we actually need some of these sort of facilities. And I'm just wondering if it would be something that, we refuse just now, but might be approved in this time later ahead. So I'm a little bit neither here nor there right at the moment, thanks.
But I think, so the one piece of information you're talking about is how long you think the business has been established, and I would probably go beyond that as well to say how long has there been a commercial presence on this particular site from back in history, if we could establish that as well.
Yeah, I think you've summarised my points a damn sight more eloquently than I did. Thank you.
Thanks so much for that, Councillor McFarlane. Councillor Johnston?
Thank you, Chair. I agree with Councillor McFarlane. I think we need to have more information on this site and just how long it's been established and there's been a commercial business there, and what any sort of feeder from that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much. So, haven't got any dissenting voices in regards to that at all. So we've got three particular points, I think. So we'll join Councillor Johnston and McFarlane's up together as being a point, and you've got two from Councillor Driver in regards to Councillor Scobie's, and I think it's the impact that's having, the 2 points and the extra information that was put forward. I think we felt that was relevant anyways. Councillor Baretti?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. The haulage industry is fraught with flexibility because as contracts come and go, you might be working for 4 or 5 years with one contract and then might have nothing for another 2 years until someone else decides to give you another contract. Now, the proximity to the port would be normal, because if something is coming in, it's been hauled from Northern Ireland, which is where it's going to come, the person who's hauling it would drop the trailer in the port and another vehicle would have to go and pick it up. Now, I notice when I come down to Dumfries every now and then, mostly, that I do see this tractor unit, Clucky, plying the 75, and I've often wondered where they come from. Well, I've now found out where they come from. So it would make sense to have a site that is close to the port as possible. Whether or not the influence of vehicles there is important to air quality, I doubt, because these vehicles are not going to be running engines all the time. They're going to be going, picking up and leaving and then coming back. So that's what's going through my mind at the moment, Chair.
Okay, no, thanks so much for that. Go on, Tracy.
Thanks, Chair. I have noted down about the question members have got around how long an established commercial business has been on the site. In relation to what I read out at the start about the main issues for consideration, was our members satisfied to take the late information into account, which was on pages 31 and 33, the representation from Councillor Scobie and the additional supporting statement from the applicant, where in line with the procedure, it was that had the matter, why had the matter not been raised before, and that it had not been raised before, was it exceptional circumstances? I know members have mentioned that they want more information on those two late pieces of information, but I'm not sure what members are asking for in relation to those two. Is it clarification on the number of employees because there's a discrepancy between the two, or is it something else you are looking for before you would consider whether you're taking that into account? If I could just have clarification on that, please.
Councillor Peretti, then Driver, Archie. Tony first.
Yeah, haulage industry, as I said, is not something that is fixed. So if contractors lose, if a haulier loses a contract, or that the goods from the contractee drops, the driver list is going to go up and down. It's not going to be static. So they'll have a pool of drivers where you will call in a driver, and therefore that driver may work for a contract period, which could be 6 months, a year, whatever, until the contract changes. So that's one important factor, that contract or hauliers do not have a fixed number of employees. It can go up and down as contracts come and go, or goods logistics move. As far as the other point, I forgot, what was it, Tracy?
Around how long the business had been established?
Yeah, again, I think that is relevant to the fact that because contracts are notoriously difficult to find and keep, a contractor might go down to 2 units, and those units might not actually need a station. They could be somewhere else. But if he's got 15, which is what this is saying, he may have 15 tractor units, which will or will not be all in the yard or in a local place at one time, because they're hauling. That's what their job is. So you might see only 2 or 3 at the time. The others might be out working. So I think it's a very difficult point to establish that.
Capture that, Tracy. I suppose my particular point around that, how long has it been established, and that's why I touched on with Councillor Johnston earlier, we have discussed, is it material actually in regards to kind of enforcement be taken? Because if it's been established for 40 years, then to me that's a material consideration that I would probably take into consideration. If it's been established for 10 years, 1 month, I might have a different view in regards to it, or 9 years, 11 months. I might have a different view, but if it's been, I know a number of businesses that have been established for haulage yards in particular, for a long, long time, but it's almost in some of them, because it would be before 1947, so they already had a plan permission in real terms before planning came into existence, but going back as far as that. But I've seen this before, so that's why I'm out. So it might not even be a haulage, it might be a commercial use for something else. But if it's established as a commercial, so for me that might be relevant in regards to what was the commercial use, how long has it been established, what was the traffic generations like by the previous commercial use, all that type of thing would, that for me that would be a material consideration. So that's where my thoughts were with that, and I'll come back to another couple of bits as well, but I'll just give all members a chance just to consider their thoughts and get a chance, because I am going to ask Robert to come in at some point in regards to, we've just got to run through, say this is, so we're looking at how, we'll look through how the process, how the evaluation that the case officers took into consideration. I think maybe reflect a bit on the appointed officer who's looked at this. I think there's some relevant points in there so that we're clear in regards to our, I suppose, process, and to come to our conclusion that we're quite clear and we've made we've followed a proper process to come at the decision, whatever that decision may be. But Archie, I think I've got to bring you back in as well, because you mentioned your 2 points, just to make sure that Tracy's absolutely clear on what you were saying.
I think first of all, Tracy, thanks for sort of bringing that forward. I do think there's a little bit more information that the planning officer should bring forward to us. specifically about, the sustainable economic growth in the area, which Councillor Scobie talks about. And then, again, it comes to the amount of time, as you were saying, Chair, that have actually been there, or has a business been there beforehand, which, again, I would look at more favourably, I think, on this one. But I would need to understand exactly how long they've been there and the importance of the support and sustainable economic growth in that particular area when it comes to things like, we've got the Borderlands issues that happen there with the Cairnryan site. So there is a couple of things that I really need to understand a bit better before I come to a decision on this. And I think we should adjourn so that we can get that information from the planning officer.
Oh, excellent, thank you. Thanks so much, Councillor Dryburgh. So Tracy, can I ask you just to summarise what your thoughts are, Robert, and I'll come back to you after in regards to what's been asked for. Make sure that give members a chance to come back. Then Robert, if you don't mind, I'll ask you just to, from a procedural point of view, just run through to make sure that we're following the right track. Thank you. But Tracy, you first. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. So in relation to the additional information that members were asked to consider whether they were going to accept, which is the supporting statement from Councillor Scobie and the supporting statement from the applicant received on the 6th of January, I've noted down that members would like to have more information from the planning officer around the sustainable economic growth within the area, which would affect the business use. And also, in addition to that, members would like to know how long this business and or any previous commercial business has been on this development site previously, how many years it's been established for.
I suppose the one thing I'm really keen to understand as well, I think it was offered up in regards to the other potential viable sites that are available to this in that local area, what are referred to within, ideally it says within a settlement boundary. Tracy?
Thanks, Chair. So the applicant's agent did state that they would be happy to provide the viability report on alternative and previous considered sites, and that was one of the points. Do members of the local review body wish to request this and have it presented back at a future meeting?
Please, if that's okay, if that's something I'm particularly interested in. Just because historically in rural areas, Dumfries and Galloway being rural, we've come across this many times, and I'm hoping that will be addressed through the local development plan rather than ad hoc appeals and plan applications. Robert, can I ask you to say a few words in regards to just whether you think we've captured procedurally the relevant points in regards to what we should be looking at, please?
Thanks, Chair. From what I'm hearing, and also from the clerk as well as from members, you're wanting to issue a procedure notice, and that's fine. You can do that at this stage, but you would need to set out what the extra information it is that you seek, who you're seeking that from, what's the timescale for that to come back to elected members. Now, if that's what you're looking for at this stage, then that's absolutely fine, and we would issue that procedure notice, and then we would report back to a further meeting of this local review body once we had that. That wouldn't then stop your consideration of issuing a further procedure notice if you wanted to do that. So, for example, if you then wanted to go out on a site visit in the wake of that information, you could still do that. So don't feel that you've got to capture everything at once. So it would be entirely up to yourself how you proceeded next time. You could ask for additional information or additional process. In relation to the kind of duration of the kind of haulage use of this site, again, when I look back at the officer's report, it's saying there was a pre-application inquiry submitted in 2023 for the proposed change of use of the site to a haulage yard, which makes me think this hasn't been a long-standing use. The other thing is they're employing a professional agent. They have a planning solicitor on board as well. I would have thought if it had been in operation for more than 10 years, they would have just cut to the chase and submitted a certificate of lawfulness. But I can't say that with any certainty. The simple fact is I don't know, but I suspect this has been a haulage yard for less than 10 years. I think that issue is on that basis a bit of a red herring, because you've got a case here in front of you that needs to be determined, and they've made that application and they're looking for a decision on that application. So a certificate of lawfulness is a kind of different kettle of fish, and they could go through that process separately if they wanted to.
Thank you. So members, we do have a second bite or a third bite of the cherry if we want, but I mean the more we can capture today, the better is what I would say. The only thing we haven't discussed in any great value, other than councillor driver said he's no bother about it, but is a site visit. If we are going to adjourn, defer this decision to a later point in time, should we be having a site visit? I'll just open it up to members to take in consideration any points, but maybe everybody's satisfied with the photographs. I'm comfortable either way. Councillor Baretti, then Johnston.
I know the location over many decades because I've driven that road quite a few times. I can't remember specifically looking over to see whether or not that was a haulage yard, but it could easily be that a tractor unit was just parked in front of Rosebank Cottage for, just every now and then, and that might have been over 20 years. But you would never actually want to put hard standing in there if there was only one tractor unit or two tractor units. Most haulage companies start off with one unit and the person builds it up, because to get to that level, you don't suddenly start with 10 or 12 or 15. You start with 1, 2, 3, 4 when you realize that your business is there. So that would be the kind of question I would ask.
Okay, so my thoughts are, just come back to your comments here and picking up on what you're saying as well, Tony, is my thoughts that it's probably wasn't a haulage yard, because you'd have to apply for an operator's licence, is what I'm thinking, to have that properly functioning. But was there any potential other commercial use on there? Or was it just residential, or was it even a croft, kind of, for agricultural, so on and so forth? Which is then, it lets me understand in history what's on it. That's the reason I'm asking that particular question. And was there 50 tractors an hour, or was there 2 movements with a car and a horse and cart a day? I just don't understand in comparison to what's been applied for at the moment. So that's just where I'm coming from. The commercial use was historically or not. Not getting anybody taking up site visits, so we'll leave the site visit at the moment, and if that's the case, if nobody's really... Councillor Johnston?
I'm quite happy with the photographs that we have here. I don't really feel that I would need a site visit at this point, thanks.
No, I'm absolutely comfortable with that as well. Yep. Take it members in the virtual room are as well. So we're looking to Robert, do you just think, and Laura, I will come to yourself, I'll just think a bit aware, just I have been keeping an eye on you, you've always been focused. Robert?
My thought is, if that's the type of information you're looking for, you're going to have to go to the applicant to get that, because there won't be any history on a planning record of it. I mean, all the planning history is set out in the delegated report, which is what I've got to go on. So this is clearly going above and beyond that and trying to get a much more historical narrative of how a business has developed and grown at this location. So I would suggest that that request is put to the applicant through the agent.
Sound advice, I would say. Laura?
Thank you, Chair. Quite happy with everything that's been said today. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much for that. Members, if that's the case, I think are you quite clear on what we've asked for then, Tracy, just before we go to adjournment?
Thanks, Chair. So I think members are agreeing to issue a procedural note, and that's to request additional information through the applicant's agent, and that's for the viability report, which has been offered through the applicant's agent previously, and also a request if they can provide further information on when this business was established and or any previous historic commercial business use on the application site. And we're also making a request to the planning service to provide information on sustainable economic growth within the area.
I think did I touch on the site appraisals as well in regards to the ones you know? Have you picked up on that? Maybe you did. Maybe you picked up on that particular point. I think again, because that was offered up. I know you spoke about that. You offered up. And as far as the site appraisals, was there any other sites available in the local area? Robert?
I'm just wanting to be clear on what I'm being asked for. So that is looking for the alternative options, if you like, that are set out in the development plan for business and industry. Is that right?
So my understanding is if because of the knowledge that I've got in regards to the plan and procedures, so normally if you are looking for an exception to policy, as in this case it would be the case, you'd have to have ruled out every other available site in that area as part of our procedure. That's outlined quite clearly within our LDP and our procedure notices. So that's like, it hasn't been followed. For buyers, there is claims saying, listen, the council never asked for that through the plan department, but my understanding it's quite clear, it's in black and white. You've just got to look for that. that procedure notice. So that's what I'm trying to find out. And they say, well, listen, we can actually come back and retrospectively quite outline clear, this is why these other sites are not viable. So I'd like to see that information. Okay? Yep, thank you. Thanks very much. Councillor Baretti?
Just when Tracy was reading that out, I would also like to ask the casual use of this potential location, which might be going back anything from 10 to 20 years, because it's not something you would realise that was there. Because when you go around this entire area, you do see tractor units just parked up everywhere. And they're there for a reason. Someone has left them there. So it may well be that 20 years ago there was a tractor unit there and we wouldn't really recognise it as a haulage yard.
Thank you. Thanks so much for that. You okay with that, Tracy? Yep. She's got that. Robert, are you okay with that? And Laura, last chance? Yep, no, that's fine too. Right, members, if that's the case, so usually if we go to adjourn, that's been formally put forward. I think everybody's happy with that. The time on that was sorted out with yourself, Tracy, I think, wasn't it? And between yourself and Robert, is that in regards to when we come back? Don't know if we need an indication of that, but if you've got any indication at all, we'll take that. If not, we'll just leave it in your capable hands.
I think we would probably need to find a suitable diary date, first of all, Chair.
Probably sometime in the next couple of months, I think, yeah, just to give I think the applicants who are probably watching it or so on and so forth, that's some kind of idea. Tracy?
Yeah, it was just when Robert mentioned timescales earlier, I wasn't sure if we provide the applicant's agent with a limit on when we would like the information, rather than it being open-ended, whether we put a time limit on when we would expect that information back from the applicant's agent. I mean, it will probably take a couple of months to get a date in the diary, so...
That sounds very competent. Members, we happen to say that, so within a reasonable time, ideally within a couple of months, but obviously leave that for the sake of the odd thing that comes up through operational matters, that we'll leave that in Robert and Tracy's capable hands, if that's okay. Right,
yep.
Right, excellent, thanks for that, Councillor Driver. So that's it, I think we've adjourned until a future meeting, still to be agreed, and we've got the information outlined that we're looking to be supplied with at that point. Thanks very much, members.
Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.